You wake up, put on your Ray-Ban Meta glasses. You're living all in. You realize you need coffee. So you say,
"Hey, Meta, how do I make a latte?"
Brew 2 shots of espresso.
After Meta AI gets you caffeinated, you're ready for some beats.
"Hey, Meta, play hip-hop music."
You head to meet some friends, but can't remember the place.
"Hey, Meta, call Eva."
Ray-Ban Meta glasses, the next generation of AI glasses. Just say, "Hey, Meta," to harness the power of Meta AI. Shop now at meta.com/smartglasses.
Light up your holidays with Vizio's 65-inch Quantum Smart TV, now just $449.99 at Target. Immerse yourself in a world of over 1 billion vibrant colors with quantum dot technology. Plus, wide viewing angle ensures everyone gets the perfect view during movie marathons, no matter where they sit. Stream your favorite festive songs from North Pole Radio using the built-in iHeartRadio app. But hurry, this deal won't last much longer. Give the gift of entertainment and get your Vizio 65-inch Quantum Smart TV for just $449.99 at Target today.
Afternoon, konnichiwa, and bonjour, whatever language you speak and wherever you're at in the world. Scratch that, wherever you're at in the universe, humans and aliens alike. You are tuned into what we affectionately like to call worst case scenario radio. My name is Max Fuller, a.k.a. Marty Max Fly, a.k.a. Max U McConaughey, a.k.a. Matthew Max Conaughey, a.k.a. Fro Name It, a.k.a. a million other things. And I'm here alongside the Cornfield Casanova, a.k.a. the Hawkeye State Hottie, a.k.a. Double B, a.k.a. Triple B, a.k.a. Brett Blakemore. How you doing, Brett?
I'm Maxo. I can't wait for Sunday. I can't wait for the Wild tonight. This is such a great time of the year for sports, man.
It really
because
is.
The abyss is on the other side,
Exactly.
brother. It's
and
coming.
we've lived through the abyss.
Yes.
We had to do radio every week during the abyss. And sometimes you are reaching for topics, but not today. We got plenty to talk about. But you know, if we're here, that means Abbott had no other options. Common is out of town. Tenna is somewhere.
I believe he's swinging the clubs somewhere tropical.
Oh,
I
somewhere
believe.
tropical.
Yes.
Catching a tan somewhere. Tenna B's with his vast and ever-expanding family.
Well, there's that.
And I heard through the grapevine, Brett Blakemore, that our lovely program director, Chad Abbott, he tried everything in his power to not have us on the air today. Everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I heard he asked Muss, but Muss said it was between his prime drinking hours of noon and midnight. Thank you. He tried asking Captain Billy Hildebrand, but Cap said he'd do it, but only if he could debut the new iteration of his show, Fan Outdoors XXX.
I always love that.
And Abbott wasn't able to get all of the obscenities edited out in time, so it was just too filthy to air. He even tried asking Mouth Guitar Guy, a program legend.
Oh, my gosh.
You know what Mouth Guitar Guy said? Did you hear? Were you on the call?
Yes,
were you on the
of
call with Abbott?
Well, yeah,
That's
it was the
exactly
last
what
resort.
he said. And that translates roughly to, I can't today because I'm getting ready to do the Super Bowl halftime show with Kendrick Lamar.
Oh, can't wait.
So, thus, Abbott had to break the emergency glass that is Max Fuller and Brett Blakemore. We'll try admirably to fill the quota for skullduggery and tomfoolery, but ultimately we will fail because nobody can live up to the legend that is the common man. We'll try to do a good. We'll try to get to 3.
I always love that one.
I feel like I have to use the button bar just in the nature of noon to 3. I have to get
you
the fill in.
You got to use the button bar.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a part of the show.
You've got to be kidding me.
I know. I'm going to use it.
It's a Phone It In Friday. There's a million places we could start. You already talked about it, Brett. It's border battle week. The Vikings take on the Packers with possibly the number 1 seed in all of the NFC on the line for the purple. There's the Minnesota Timberwolves, who narrowly dodged a bullet on Christmas Day, figuratively, not literally. I mean, they were in Dallas. I don't think anyone's ever been in human history. Has anyone ever been shot in Dallas? I don't think so. I mean,
depends on who you ask.
I don't think so. We can start with the Minnesota Wild, who are in action tonight, playing against the Dallas Stars, I believe. There's a million places we can start. This is usually where Common would probably spin the wheel of topics, and it would maybe possibly land on his golf game. We don't know. But Brett Blakemore, I want to start with the start of all starts, the place where it all started, outer space. You familiar with outer space?
I'm aware of it.
Heard of it once or twice?
I've a couple 13, 14 times.
We like to think of space as this vast and ever expanding network, to borrow a phrase from PA. But in reality, apparently, it's getting pretty crowded out there in outer space, Brett Blakemore. And Kessler syndrome could be upon us. This is not something that I'm making up. Kessler syndrome. It's not an ailment that Barrero gets on a weekly basis after spending a couple of segments with Pat Kessler. It is, in fact, an old scientific theory from a man named Donald Kessler, who once said...
Horrific.
Oh, thank you. Who once said that if we keep sending stuff into outer space, one day space is going to get too crowded and things are going to start knocking into each other. Lucky. Sounds like what I thought was going to happen when I went to parties in high school.
And it was a big one.
Oh, Pat, you're getting ahead of yourself. But the theory says that once things start knocking, they won't stop knocking, and disaster will surely ensue.
That's a lie.
It's not a lie, Kessler.
Wow.
Don't dispute your own theory or your grandfather's theory, possibly. And because we humans continue to send stuff into outer space, we currently have over 10,000 satellites in space right now as we speak. 7,000 of them belonging to Elon Musk, but that's a story for a different day.
I had no idea.
Well, now you know. And apparently there's over 40,000 pieces of debris in space as well. D''Bree, by the way, is going to be a great college football player someday.
Yes. I just recruited him in my online dynasty the other day. So.
I got him playing with Laquan Xavier's DiCaprio.
He's classified as an athlete, so I'm not really sure where to put him, but we'll see what happens.
If anyone out there wants any baby names, Sauce may be listening.
Think about it.
Bree is still out there. And this whole Kessler syndrome thing, Brett Blakemore, it might go down. Some scientists are saying it might go down as soon as 2025. And when I mean go down, I mean literally go down. Because if stuff starts colliding as predicted, Wi-Fi could be knocked out.
No.
Planes wouldn't be able to fly. Apparently, it would even affect crops, so on and so forth. It could be the end of the world as we know it.
What are you, nuts?
No, I'm not nuts, Kessler. It's your own namesake's theory. So I say all of that to ask you this, Brett Blakemore. If the world as we know it was ending / is ending, because this apparently could happen in 2025, not to be a Debbie Downer, how would you spend your last days on Earth?
I told myself I wouldn't cry.
This is sad.
It's natural.
You've got Kessler depressed now, too. Here's the thing. I could have a funny, I'd run naked down, down First Ave or something wild and ridiculous.
So you're not a commit all types of crimes kind of end of the world guy?
I'm going home and I'm riding it out with family. I'm boring. I'm sorry. I'm
that's
vanilla.
That's the wholesome answer.
But it's the truth.
That's the wholesome answer.
I'm a little man.
It is what it is. So, no, that's first thing I'm doing is hopping on 35. You're going immediately south.
Notoriously like a picky eater. You wouldn't just try everything just to see what's up. I mean, you don't have to deal with it. The world's ending.
I'd love to try everything now. I just can't get around that block. I'd love that. But no, that's the right answer if you're being real. But no, I'd run down naked down First Ave.
That would be way cooler. Yeah. I totally would be naked for the entirety of the end of the world. I would have some drug-fueled parties. I wouldn't be doing anything murderous or violent or anything like that. But
no.
But your boy might, go get himself the TV he always wanted. Go put a Gucci belt on.
And you'd pay for it.
Yeah, of course.
Obviously.
Of course. Yeah,
you wouldn't do anything
just in case the world doesn't end. You know what I'm saying?
Those Target cameras will get you, man. They're keeping track.
Oh, they are.
Yeah.
I am not allowed back in certain Targets.
Have you consumed marijuana?
Not today. Not yet.
was
But, okay.
sweet ganja.
Yes, you're 100% correct, Kessler. And, Brett, this Kessler syndrome thing, if it took place, it doesn't inherently mean that everyone would die right away. But life as we know it would be just insanely different and more difficult without some of our modern amenities. Do you think you could survive without the internet and video games?
My internet was out there was a really bad storm this summer. I remember because I was at the Braves were in town. I can't remember when it was, like August. There's a really bad storm, and my internet was out for 2 days. The world might as well have been ending at that point. It was so. I was checking my phone at work. I was checking it at home, just refreshing
just
the
constantly.
page of the internet provider. Like, when are we fixing this? Like, come on. So, and seeing all your friends online, yeah, that's. So no, the answer to your question, no. I'd be a disaster. So? I would be a wreck. I'd figure it out eventually, but it would be a long recovery period.
Society in general. So I feel like even knowing that there's no internet in the entire world, I would still be trying to refresh Twitter. Just mindlessly opening up the phone and still trying to refresh Twitter over and over and over again. But, I like to think that I could survive, Brett Blakemore. I'm not a doomsday prepper or anything like that, but I listen to Fan Outdoors every week. I like to think that, with the advice of Billy and Bob, that I think I got a second calling as a forest forager.
Well, if you listen to Tackle and... Well, you just got to jig the line, and once you hard jig and you set the hook, you should be good.
We laugh at Tackle Taratuma now, but in this situation, he's going to be one of the leaders of society.
If I'm not going home to just ride it out my last couple days, I think that'd be my next call was the captain. He'd take me in.
I'm going to go find Cap. He's got a giant cabin that fits like 400 people and 500 dogs.
500 mice as well.
Right, exactly. Yeah. We can all just hang out at Cap's house. I like to think, I'm a city guy, but I often hear my inner beast howling. Oh, waiting to be set free. Maybe this is the situation, Brett Blake. Or maybe my second calling is going to happen when the world ends.
Sayonara, suckers.
Well, it's not ending yet.
You're a little ahead of yourself,
It's not ending yet, Pat.
Yeah.
Although it probably sounds like it to some people who don't want to hear us on the radio 12 to 3. But I am curious to hear from y'all. I'm always curious to hear from y'all. What are you doing in an end of the world scenario? Let us know. We always love hearing from you, and there's plenty of ways to holla at us. You can hit us up on the Holla Hotline, 800-320-5326. You can text us, 64686. Leave us a talk back on the free iHeartRadio app. Give us your best 30 seconds. Hopefully that's the first time you've heard that phrase lately. You can send a message in a bottle. You can write a letter with a quill pen and send it via carrier pigeon. However you want to get a hold of us, we love to hear from you. We got what is hopefully a super fun show planned for you guys today. Of course, we're going to talk plenty of purple as they get ready for a big-time border battle with the Packers on Sunday at 3:25, which obviously, thank you, crowd, which obviously, as always, you can hear all of the action right here on these very airwaves, 100.3 KFAN. We're going to chat with Chris Hine of the Star Tribune about our beloved and often aggravating Minnesota Timberwolves. We got Kevin Fallness in the mix to talk some hockey, and then stick around for a little Progrum password, where he and nobody's heard the teams yet.
I haven't heard the teams yet.
Kevin Fallness will be teaming up with none other than Brett Blakemore.
Me and Fallness. Oh boy!
Don't look so excited.
Yeah, I'm old enough to remember when you selected Fallness in the draft.
I mean,
it didn't go great.
I couldn't believe that he fell that far in the draft. I still think I got the steal of the draft.
You had him high on your board. Get your guy.
Right, exactly.
I don't blame you.
He just hasn't turned out yet. You know what I'm saying? It took Dallas Turner a couple weeks to start turning out. Me and Fallness, we just didn't give Fallness that grace. That Dallas Turner guy. He's got all the tools. It's just between the ears.
He was the only guy you had a first-round grade on.
Yeah,
so 100%. You take your guy.
He's a motor guy.
There's only one round of the draft.
A high character guy.
It's a locker room guy.
Exactly.
He may not score goals, but at least he's funny.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. So it'll be you.
And you got bounced in the first round.
And Kevin Fallness.
Doesn't work for hockey or password.
Does not work. It does not work. And you know who you guys will be taking on, Brett Blakemore?
No. Well, yes, but go on.
Haley, thank you. Haley, the lovely Haley Darling. We all love her. And Carly. Carly is in the mix, so it'll be the dynamic duo of Haley and Carly taking on Fallness and Brett Blakemore. Plus, I want to try a new segment that's kind of similar. It's inspired by those reaction videos on YouTube. I want you, the lovely listener, to recommend a song to us that you think we've never heard before, and we'll listen to it live on the air for the very first time and give you our live reactions to it. I already got hundreds of recommendations from folks on Twitter.
Love that one.
But if you have any good ones, you can send them our way all throughout the show. We'll take any and all recommendations. That'll be after program password much later on. All of that and more as Brett Blakemore and I hang with you till 3 p.m. Appreciate you guys for allowing us to spend some time with you today. And we'll be back with some border battle talk right after these messages.
Head over to NFLshop.com for the largest collection of officially licensed gear from all your favorite brands. NFL Shop is your ultimate gifting destination for jerseys, t-shirts, headwear, and more. Take your game day style to the next level with the best selection of NFL gear anywhere. Show off your team pride this holiday season with styles fit for the whole family. To shop now, go to NFLshop.com.
If you want to chime in what's happening in your favorite KFAN shows, you can make your voice heard on the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. Just let us know what you have to say by texting your message to 64686. That's 64686, standard text message, and data rate supply.
Plenty of people letting us know what they want to say and chiming in on their favorite KFAN shows. Got plenty of music recommendations. If you didn't hear the first segment, we're going to be right after program password. Later on, we're going to do a song reaction segment. So if you have any song recommendations that you think me and Brett Blakemore haven't heard, or Haley Darling as well, then you can send it to us and we'll react to them live on the air as long as they're airable. FCC airwaves. So thank you.
That is an important clarification.
That is an important clarification because I saw some people, I asked for this question on Twitter. Some people were sharing Walker Wheeler Jr. songs. If you're familiar with him, there's not a single song that man has ever made that is airable on FCC airwaves. And speaking of things that are not airable on FCC airwaves, thank you to Phil for texting in and calling me the N-word 10 minutes into the show. That is a new record for me, so I appreciate that. Welcome back to KFAN. If you're wondering where Common is, he's somewhere catching a TAN, soaking up all the sun and enjoying a well-earned vacation with BBP, Deuce, and Potato. He'll be back next week.
You know what he's doing.
What's he doing?
Where'd you hit it on one? Second shot? How far from the green?
He's got to be. He's got a knockdown punch cut fade going right now.
Fade?
100%.
Fairways, frequency, and family. He's doing all of it except for the frequency part. He'll be back on these airwaves, I'm assuming, sometime next week. If the Wheel of Topic lands on it, maybe he'll let you know how his golf game is. You just never know what the Wheel of Topic is going to land on. But in his stead, it's me, Max Fuller, and Brett Blakemore. And it's border battle weekend. So, we got to talk some Vikings, Packers. And we've heard this game get broken down a million different ways on these airwaves that are much more elite football minds than our own. And most of the breakdowns have been from a Vikings perspective. And, I like to think that we're pretty tight, Brett Blakemore. This country's very divided. People are in their own little circles, but I'm extending an olive branch to you across the fence as a Vikings fan to a Packers fan to have some border battle talk. Is that okay? I got some questions for you. I want to hear it from a Packers perspective.
No.
So I got some questions for you. As a Packers fan, we all know from the Vikings perspective, with possibly the number one seed in the NFC, home field advantage throughout the playoffs is on the line, a date with destiny and the Detroit Lions in the final week of the regular season, should they win on Sunday afternoon. But as a Packers fan, what does this game mean for the Packers? Does it have the same, can they really move up and down in the rankings? Is there a preferred matchup? What does this game necessarily mean for the Packers? Because it means everything, obviously, to the Vikings.
Yeah, so there is some movement possibility, but it's anywhere between 5 and 7. So best case scenario for the green and gold is They went out. They beat the Vikings. They beat a dead and gone Bears team at home at Lambeau, Week 18, which I would bet you has on that happening. They're done. Even if they are playing backups. Packers went out. Vikings would lose out, so that'd be losing to the Packers, losing to the Lions, which unfortunately is possible. It's also possible the other way around. If that were to happen, the Packers would hop the Vikings for the 5 seed because the tiebreaker would be common opponents since they split their season series. So that would put the Packers going to, I believe, Tampa. I believe the Vikings would go to LA as the 6th seed in that case. But
going to Tampa is a lot more desirable from either team's perspective.
Correct.
As good as Tampa has looked at times, they're very inconsistent.
They just lost to the dead Cowboys last week. So
Cooper Rush.
Yeah, not too concerned about that one. But the Bucs have been a Achilles heel for the Pack in the past. It's mostly Tom Brady though. But the more important thing is not so much that moving up from either LA or Tampa. The most important thing is not dropping to 7 because it's a very real possibility. So even if the Packers beat the Bears the last week, if they lose to the Vikings and split the last 2 games and the Commanders win out, which they play a bad Falcons team, a bad Cowboys team, if they win both those games, Washington, entirely possible, and the Packers lose 1 game, they would be the 7, and in the first round would go to Philly to take on Jalen Hurts and Saquon. That is, to me, the biggest thing. I don't care who, if it's LA or Tampa, I just don't want to go to Philly first round at all. I want nothing to do with that matchup. So,
that's what kind of that whole matchup against Philly is. A lot of the Packers' early season problems stemmed from that game, right?
The last play specifically, when Jordan Love got someone diving at his knees after the play, which wasn't a flag. So that I don't want anything to do. Especially Packers always get just torched by star running backs. It happens every year. It happened with Saquon. He was at the Giants. It happened with McCaffrey. Raheem Mostert at times. I wouldn't call him elite, but he looked elite against the Packers in the playoffs. So, that's the one. That's why it means a lot to the Pack. Obviously means a lot to the Vikes trying to get the 1 seed, but that would be the biggest thing you have to avoid is going to Philly.
Yeah, nobody
need to win
wants
to
to
do
go
that.
Philly. So right now it would be Washington, Philly.
Correct.
Oh, that'd be a hell of a matchup.
So right now it's Washington, Philly, but I mean, literally, this Packer-Viking border battle game could decide the fate of 3 different teams' seedings.
Wow.
Because I believe the Commanders could go all the way up to 4. I don't have the playoff machine in front of me, but it would move 3 different teams just switching that, flipping that switch of who wins this game.
So a lot on the line for both teams. Brett Blakemore, as a Packers fan, what do you think the Vikings' biggest weakness? Now, Vikings fans, I'm just appeasing him. Obviously, we know the Vikings don't have a whole lot of weaknesses. They're the best team in the NFL. But as a Packers fan, what in your mind, your delusional Packers fan mind, do you think is the Vikings' biggest weakness that the Pack could take advantage of this weekend?
It's a good question. I feel like they just, if they don't make mistakes, I feel the last couple of weeks, whether it be Seattle, the game against Arizona, it took some immense game mismanagement, the most blatant face mask in the world. I mean, that last sack on Darnold, and it was absolutely a face mask.
Yeah,
so
ridiculous.
Obvious.
About time that he actually gets that call, too, by the way.
Agreed. But because you got robbed on that other one, which was clearly a face mask. So just playing the what-if game, if he knew how to sack the quarterback without grabbing a handful of the face mask, that game is over, and it's an L in Seattle.
Yeah.
It took the Cardinals, they were in control a lot of that game, like 3/4 of the game, and then a just complete capitulation, no game management skills, clock management skills whatsoever, and the Vikings managed to pull themselves out and win that game. I just think the weakness is the Vikings are such a good team. I think the weakness is just playing smart and not doing stupid mistakes, not beating yourselves and being your own problem. And I think I don't remember the last time the Vikings have really had a team where, it's a good quality team that doesn't make a lot of mistakes, because I would argue Seattle and Arizona really beat themselves. So that would be my kind of cop-out answer.
And the Packers are one of the best turnover teams in the league, and obviously fumbling. And at times interceptions, although Darnold's, I think going on 4 or 5 weeks interception free now at this point. Or I think he had one against the Bears a couple weeks ago that wasn't really his fault. But either way, the turnovers have been minimal and the fumbles haven't really been affecting things either. So, but the Packers are the type of team that will absolutely take advantage of that.
Yeah. If you crack the door, I mean, these are two really good teams that are, I mean, every line, whether it's been going back and forth between Packers and Vikings. I was watching the NFL preview little YouTube videos that they put out, and they have their expert panel to predict the games. Every single one of them was a 3-point game. Wow. Every single one of the predictions. So it's really a coin toss. But I do expect that it's going to be I would say it's an overwhelming game. I'll put it that way. I think there's going to be some points scored.
Yeah.
And I think both offenses are rolling. I think Sam Darnold and JJ can cook on those crossing routes. So, yeah, I think it'll be a fun game. That you can guarantee.
Speaking of both offenses are rolling, and I guess it's just because I'm so in tune with the Vikings this season, I didn't even realize, it feels like kind of an inverse this year where the Vikings are the team that, I mean, although some people in the audience will disagree, they have been getting a lot of credit and a lot of notoriety this season, whereas the Packers have been the ones flying under the radar. When I was looking at the stats this morning, 4th in total team offense. I wouldn't have thought that. It just feels like they're flying under the radar this season and not getting as much love or attention as they usually do. Do you think that's just a factor of the Lions and the Vikings playing so well, or do you disagree that the Packers are not getting their just due? It just feels like they're flying more under the radar.
This could be a situation of the algorithm, because I do see some national people be like, watch out for Green Bay. Like, they could be a little sleeper team. You know, I think Romo said on his last broadcast that, he expects the Packers to go all the way. That was his squad. But again, I think when you look at the NFC North and you see they're in 3rd place, it's easy to just go, they're in 3rd place. Right. So, they're 3rd place in their own division. Or Lavelle, who I love dearly, was like, you're closer to last place than you are 1st place. I'm like, well, by wins, that's not true, but sure. I mean, if you just look at the standings, I guess that's true.
Bears fans got to do whatever they can.
I know. They've got to scrape a claw to find something. That team is dead. Chance sell the team during last night's barn burner, a 6-3 game at Soldier Field. I think they need to put out an apology to America for putting that game on.
And this is saying something, because it's usually a comedy of errors with these Thursday night football games. That's one of the worst Thursday night football games I've ever seen in my entire life.
Oh, they were so bad.
Yeah.
So it was just a horrible game of football. The lows of the NFL is just so bad. It's horrendous. So, but no, They're a sleeper team for sure, but I am fairly confident almost wherever they go, except for Philly. I thought they could have easily beat the Lions in Detroit. I thought it was a game that the last team with the ball won. And I'll let you know after Sunday how confident I am going forward. Because they come in here like they did last year and just roll. Now, granted, Jaron Hall was playing quarterback that day.
That is a huge factor.
First half of that game. So that was a factor. But they did put up, I think, 33 points at US Bank Stadium last year with Bo Melton scoring 2 touchdowns.
Oh God.
Who?
That's for everybody. So if they do that, I will be extremely delusional and confident going forward.
The Packers fans are always delusional.
Correct.
That's just part of the bit.
Even more delusional.
Even more delusional than usual. Couple more for you, Brett Blakemore. An inverse of the previous question that I asked just a little bit ago. What scares you the most about this Vikings team? Is it the fierce Rock of Gibraltar run-stopping defense? Is it the gritty, which apparently the mere sight of the gritty is enough to rattle opponents and referees to the core? What is it that scares you the most about our Minnesota Vikings?
Well, first off on that, I think taunting should not be a penalty.
It should
just
never
flat
be a
out
penalty.
should not be a penalty. But
even if hands are thrown, that's just ridiculous. It's a sport, especially a sport like football. It's just so ridiculous.
Well, I don't think hands should be thrown, but that's neither
Why
here nor
not? Let them throw hands.
But so I don't think it should be a penalty taunting. However, it is a penalty, and JJ was definitely, come on. He was definitely taunting him with that gritty was personal. Yeah. He not only he was making direct eye contact, but then he was kind of doing it slower to make sure he was paying attention to him. And I love JJ. I think he's great. But no, that definitely, unfortunately, the rule is the rule. And that was taunting. But what scares me the most is JJ. And the fact that Sam Darnold can find him. I said this yesterday with Guardsy. Every single time I see the Vikings play the Packers, we get beat on the same exact thing. And it's a crosser to JJ over the middle, over the linebackers, under the safeties. and he'll lose the first corner that's on him, and then he'll just be all alone, and it'll be a free gain of 20. It happens every single game. I don't know how it keeps happening, but it continues to happen. I'm concerned that the offense just won't be able to. I think the Packers will be able to put up points against Buffalo's offense or defense. The question will be, can they outscore the Vikings against that tough defense, if that makes sense? Obviously, whoever scores the most points wins the game. But yeah, exactly. But that to me is my biggest concern, is just stopping the Vikings offense enough to give Jordan Love a little room to play with.
Last one for you in that similar vein. Who do you think is the most important person on the Packers defense to stop that vaunted and explosive Vikings offense? Because it is a pick your poison thing, as JJ said a couple weeks ago. It's either he goes off, or Addison and Hawkinson goes off, or Aaron Jones goes. There's almost no game this season where at least one of those, four-headed monster didn't go off in some way, shape, or form.
Well, it could be a game where Kenny Clark's got to get a couple sacks, or Sean Gary's got to get a couple sacks. Our new linebacker rookie, who has just really stepped up his game, Edgerrin Cooper, the last couple weeks, could be a blow-up or a step-up game for him. But if Xavier McKinney can kind of be the general of the defense and potentially get another interception, which he's gotten a million of this season, even if they can just win the turnover battle at all, I think that would be huge. But I would say it has to be a pass rush day. You have to get to Darnold and not give him any time to let those routes develop. But yeah, you've got a ton of weapons, and you're making the most of them for sure.
Well, let's hope that everything goes about as poorly as possible for the Green Bay Packers, and the Minnesota Vikings win, their ninth straight
nine
times in the border battle this Sunday. Kickoff the boom right around at 3:25 p.m. And as usual, you can hear all of it right here on KFAN. We'll talk some more purple around the corner in just a little bit. But coming up next, we got Chris Hine of the Star Tribune to talk about our beloved and often aggravating Minnesota Timberwolves. Don't go anywhere.
Head over to NFLShop.com for the largest collection of officially licensed gear from all your favorite brands. NFL Shop is your ultimate gifting destination for jerseys, t-shirts, headwear, and more. Take your game day style to the next level with the best selection of NFL gear anywhere. Show off your team pride this holiday season with styles fit for the whole family. To shop now, go to NFLShop.com.
Get ready to experience the magic of James Taylor live in concert. Don't miss out on seeing the legendary singer-songwriter along with his all-star band when they take the stage at XL Energy Center June 17th. Tickets on sale now. Get all the details, KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
Welcome back to KFAN. Worst case scenario radio is in between your eardrums. Filling in for the common man, it is me, Maxx Fuller, alongside Brett Blakemore. Your Minnesota Timberwolves escaped a Christmas Day catastrophe, holding on to beat the Dallas Mavericks 105-99, avoiding some brand new TVs being thrown out the window after freshly being wrapped, and also snapping a 3-game skid. I like to fancy myself as a pretty average Timberwolves mind. But, if you ever heard me say anything well thought out, I probably stole that take from our next guest, who happens to be one of the best in the business at covering our favorite basketball team. He covers the Wolves for the Star Tribune. He is the one and the only Chris Hine. Chris, I obviously want to get to the Wolves, but since it's still the holiday season, I got to ask, what was the best thing that Santa got you this year?
Santa hasn't visited me yet. I've been on the road this whole time. I'll see some family tomorrow, and we'll see what Santa left for me at my parents' house in Pennsylvania. But nothing right now. I guess that wasn't that good this year.
I guess not. I didn't know. I would have expected you to be a consummate nice list guy. I didn't know that you veered into the naughty list side.
I guess that depends on who you ask.
Well, I appreciate you for hanging out with us today, Chris. You're the man. In the intro, I mentioned the fourth quarter collapse on Christmas. Say that 5 times fast, by the way. And for Wolves fans this season, that's hardly been anything new. It seems like, once again, closing out games has been something that's been hard for this team to do. It's been something that plagued them for years. It seems like they kind of got over the hump last year, but now that issue is rearing its ugly head once again this year. What issues do you think are plaguing them towards the end of the games that are contributing to these late game follies?
I think it's kind of it's a culture of the NBA. It's Anthony Edwards' development and maturation in these situations. Look, NBA games, as you know, tend to get very iso ball. They slow down. Guys are dribbling to the end of the shot clock than trying to force something. And I think when Anthony Edwards at 23 years old is the guy who's got the ball in his hands in these situations, that's what he has tended to do early in his career. That's what you grow up watching. You grow up watching guys like, his favorite player, Kevin Durant, doing things like that in that situation. And the Wolves, over the last couple of years, they've been trying to get some of that out of him. And, drive to the basket, make the right play, pass out of the double teams, instead of trying to force your shot, force your dribble, force a mid-range jumper. And at times this season, he's done that, and he's shown glimpses of that, that he's learning from his past mistakes and the past issues they've had closing games. But it's an up and down process, and every night is different. And the Dallas game was different. The Golden State game earlier this year, where I think he went like 1 for 7 in the fourth quarter, was another example of that. But there were other games this year, like I remember a road win in Sacramento where he, got to the rim, got fouled, hit a couple free throws, and won the game that way. So it's all a part of having a 23-year-old as your best player on the floor.
Yeah, 100%. And I think we've been pretty spoiled in that regard, because for the most part, Anthony Edwards' evolution has been linear. I know they say that growth isn't usually linear, but for Anthony Edwards, it has been. Pretty much every single season, he's gotten exponentially better in almost every single category you can name, until we got to this season where it seems like he's having a little bit more bumps in the road along the way. Do you think that's just because of the reins essentially being handed to him, the keys to the car being handed to him, and not necessarily having to share that responsibility with Karl Anthony Towns? Or what do you think is going into Anthony Edwards' evolution this year, or how do you think he has evolved?
It's by far, I think, the most, well, maybe 2 years ago was also a really radical shift as well when Rudy Gobert got here. But, this is maybe the most radical shift or second most radical shift he's had to a roster in his career. And I think with that starting lineup, it's tough for him to operate. You heard him a few games ago talking about there was no room for him to drive to the rim. Guys are in the gaps. He's facing double teams, all this attention. And that starting lineup right now, with Julius Randle and Jaden McDaniels and Rudy Gobert, there's not a lot of great shooting on the floor that teams have to respect, to the point that it opens up things for Ant, right? Like if you had Karl out there, Karl is a 40% three-point shooter, and that tends to open up the floor at least a little bit more. But right now, teams are just focused on Ant when that starting unit is out there, so they're able to get in the gaps. They're helping off of their defenders, because if a team allows, an above the break three to Jaden McDaniels or Julius Randle, I think a lot of teams are going to live with that right now in the structure of the Wolves offense. Those guys have to prove that they can hit these shots at a high rate, and right now it's been inconsistent this season. And I think that's maybe where some of the issues are with Ant. He's just seeing all this increased attention, and there's not a lot of pressure release in terms of shooting to allow him to get to the bucket.
Yeah, and that's kind of also brought along the struggles with Julius Randle's offense, and we can get to his defense later, but that just kind of puts the ball in Julius' hands more, and he becomes a little bit more ball dominant than I think the Wolves and Wolves fans would like. And Chris, I've seen multiple stats now kind of corroborating the idea, and I get that Randle is one of the only other sources of offense on that starting lineup. I totally agree with you on your answer to the last question, but I've seen multiple stats kind of corroborating that Randle plays significantly better when he's playing with guys like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Dante DiVincenzo, and some of those other guys coming off the bench. Do you think that there's actually a case to be made for Julius to come off the bench?
I don't know that you necessarily have to, quote unquote, have him come off the bench, right? I think there's a way you can accomplish that by still having him start and not, open yourself up to the political ramifications or whatever of having Julius Randle come off the bench. There's a way you can fix rotations and, how quickly you sub Randle in and out of the game, where you can get him into these bench units without necessarily bringing him off the bench. That's, something for the coaching staff to figure out. And I think you saw a little bit of it last game when he was mixing in with these bench units. So I think there's a way to accomplish both things, if that makes sense, where you could start Julius. He doesn't have to get the sort of public demotion of, moving to the bench, but you could still mix him in with some of these second units in a better way. And that's where I think the Wolves are right now. Talking to Chris Finch a lot on this road trip, they're still trying to figure out what are the best lineup combinations that work well with each other. So I think you maybe saw a little glimpse of something they're going to go to a little more in that Dallas game with Julius and these bench guys a little bit. So I'd be on the lookout for that tonight, but I don't think you necessarily have to pull that lever of having Julius come off the bench in order to do that.
Yeah, I totally agree that there is a whole lot of ramifications, and obviously, the talking heads, the Stephen A. Smiths of the world are going to be talking on First Take if Julius Randle gets benched, and just the optics of it look pretty bad. And that actually, your answer leads me into my next question, just about, because we are starting to see Finch more so at this time of year than at the beginning of the year start to tweak the lineup a little bit. We're seeing guys like Minot get involved a little bit more. Do you think, obviously, that he doesn't have to go full Steve Kerr and have a 12-man rotation on the bid or anything like that, but do you think we're seeing more of an opening up or an unleashing of this rotation a little bit? Because Finch is pretty notorious for having 8-man lineups at the most.
Yeah, I don't think the rotation's opening up anytime soon. Having covered Chris Finch now for as long as he's been here, you ask him about the rotation, he'll give you a good answer, and then 8 guys play, and then that 9th guy gets 8 minutes, right, or whatever it is. So I think the Josh Minot minutes right now are a product of just trying to give Anthony Edwards a little extra breather. Because if you notice, he comes in usually for Ant at the end of the first quarter and to start the second. And if he's going good, Finch will let him get a little extra run, and he can bring Ant back a little later in that second quarter. Same with the third and fourth quarter. But if it's not going well and the Wolves are losing, Finch is going to go to Ant earlier than expected, and you'll look at the box score at the end of the game, and Josh Minot has played like 5 or 6 minutes, and that's your quote-unquote 9th man. I think you're going to see that more often than the rotation suddenly opening up.
Talking to Chris Hine of the Star Tribune, who covers the Timberwolves and covers them masterfully. Moving just to the broader NBA in general, not a current Timberwolf, but a former Timberwolf, Jimmy Butler. He's reportedly trying to get out of Miami, although Pat Riley says they're not trading him. Sham said that he requested a trade, and then his agent saying he's not a trade. There's all types of kerfuffle involving Jimmy Butler. Surprise, surprise. If you had to guess, where do you see Jimmy ending up if a trade is indeed made?
My first week on the beat 7 years ago was the practice that he blew up.
That was your first week?
That was like my first week, like my first month on the beat.
Welcome to the beat.
NBA moment, yeah. I don't know. That sounds like a mess.
It always is.
But in this day and age of quote unquote player empowerment, it always seems like when players have a preferred destination or a couple of preferred destinations, they seem to always end up there eventually, right? So right now there's a lot of posturing going on. His agent's probably working behind the scenes. Obviously, Pat Riley released that statement the other day, which is kind of unprecedented to comment on trade rumors like that. But at the end of the day, if he wants to go to, say, Houston, or if he wants to go to, I forget what the other teams are on that
Golden
list,
State.
but he'll probably end up in one of those situations, I'm guessing, because that's just kind of how the NBA works in this day and age.
Yeah, it's very rare that someone gets traded to somewhere they don't want to be, a la Damian Lillard. But hey, they ended up winning the NBA Cup, so I guess it's kind of working out. One more general, to be determined, I guess, TBD. One more general NBA question. Obviously, there's a whole within league circles, amongst fans. There's this whole debate after about 2 or 3 weeks weeks ago, there was a report that says that the NBA viewership numbers have just significantly declined, it appears, according to however they're keeping track of those type of things. And lots of different people are providing different answers for why they think viewership is declining. If you had to give an answer yourself, what do you think is behind this NBA viewership decline? Is it anything going on with the style of play? Is it just kind of the streaming bit? What do you think is playing into this NBA viewership decline that people are all up in arms about?
Yeah, before I would touch anything associated with the game, such as like the 3-point shot or anything to do with that, I would look at viewership habits of younger people. I would look at, the availability of games. I mean, how hard is it sometimes to figure out, for the average person, like where a game is airing, how to get it.
It's insane.
I think League Pass should mean the whole league, including your team in the local market. I think the NBA should find a way to figure that out. So I think right now, before you touch anything to do with the game and make these radical changes, I think you just got to make games easier for people to find, easier to access. You fix that problem, and I think viewership will go back up. These things tend to be cyclical, and I don't think you need to make these drastic changes to the game. You just got to make your product easier and more affordable for people to access. I think if that happens, then this talk about too many threes and this and that will eventually go away, because people will be watching the games because frankly they can, and at a reasonable rate. I don't think you need to make these radical shifts right now.
Yeah, I mean, people are talking about, dunks being worth 3 points and 4-point lines and limiting the amount of threes teams can shoot. I'm seeing some radical changes when I think it's more similar. I think it's a little bit of everything, but I think it's more in line with what you're talking about. And the fact that even over the weekend, when all the different games from different sports are happening, I couldn't just flip between games. It's just so hard to find all these things. And I think relatively the same amount of people are probably watching in reality, but just a bunch of those people found extracurricular methods to watch those NBA games rather than watch them on whatever streaming service is available.
Yeah, and I think too, I think it was Dan Patrick or somebody like that said, like, it's kind of like late night TV where, you see a clip online the next day. You don't watch like, Jimmy Fallon or Stephen Colbert these days. You see the clip the next day, right? And that's kind of what the NBA has become for younger viewers. And people always say, well, what about the NFL? The NFL ratings haven't declined. The NFL is like the exception to the rule of like media consumption, I think, in 2024. There's a social aspect to the NFL. And the rarity of an NFL game only happening once a week, 17 times a year, like, that people tune into that more, and they watch it with their friends. They're not watching Wolves Kings on a Tuesday night at 9:00 with their friends. Like, that's just not how the NBA works. The NFL has that going for it. The NBA is kind of facing what everybody else is facing right now, and I think you just have to make the product easier for people to access.
100%. And I do just think the NFL, more than any of the other big three, people tend to, hockey, baseball, basketball, people stay in their locale. They're watching only Timberwolves basketball because there's 82 games. It's hard to even watch all of Timberwolves basketball. There's 82 Wild games. There's 160-something Twins games, whereas opposed to the NFL, there's only, 17 now? And there's just more of that standard, like you said, of watching any and every game that you can, whereas, nobody's going to be watching a random TNT game that doesn't involve their favorite team on a random Wednesday night. Going back to the Wolves real quick here, we were talking about trades with Jimmy Butler just a second ago. Obviously, the trade deadline is coming up here on February 6th. There's a lot of speculation. There's been rumors that Dante could possibly be shipped or shopped around, where there's been rumors about Randall being shopped around. Do you see the Timberwolves as more of buyers or more sellers around the trade deadline this year, or standing pat?
I mean, it all depends. Listen, we got a long way to go. We have to see how the market materializes. I would be surprised, just me knowing that this Wolves team really coveted Dante DiVincenzo when he was a free agent. He was the reason why they made the trade, like once he was thrown into the Towns trade, that really tipped the scales for the Wolves to do it. I would be surprised if he was a candidate to be traded, just knowing what I know about how the Wolves like him and value him. I think you have patience with people sometimes. I remember when Taurean Prince got to Minnesota, his first season kind of playing under Chris Finch. It was a struggle about halfway through the season, and then he was 42 or 43% from 3-point range the rest of that season. So it is possible for somebody to start slow, even have a bad first half of the season shooting or a below average first half of the season, and then suddenly something clicks in the second half of the season, they're shooting lights out. So I would just be surprised on the DiVincenzo front if that was a possibility at the deadline. I'd be surprised.
Yeah, I'd be really surprised about that, too. The Randall thing totally makes sense. He's on an expiring contract. I think even before he ever played a single second for the Timberwolves, a lot of people are already speculating that could be a move to be made midway through the season. Just a couple more for you, Chris. Appreciate you for joining us today. I'm sorry, this season, maybe more than any other season, and obviously you've been on the beat for a while. You know that there's been some really bad seasons throughout this Timberwolves history, but it seems like more than ever that there's a little bit of like consternation. I don't want to say beef, but consternation between this Wolves team and the fan base this season. I mean, there's been a lot more booing at the Target Center than I can ever remember. There's been a lot more Timberwolves commenting on kind of the fan reactions. Are you sensing the same thing, or am I just tripping because I'm part of the media and I like stoking these flames of these things?
Well, I think 2 years ago it was pretty bad too after the Rudy trade. There was a lot of booing then. I think it's just relative to expectation, right? Like, this team comes in with a lot of expectations. And honestly, ever since they made the Rudy trade, there's been expectation to cash in on that because of all the picks and everything that they gave up. So ever since they made that trade, the fan base has been on edge, right? Because now it's like winning time. You have to prove that this trade was worth it. So I get the frustration, and that's the tension of this season, right? They make another big move, and the way that the team views it versus how fans view it, fans want immediate results, obviously. And the team is like, well, we got to work through it. Even 30 games into the season, we're still working through it. We're still trying to figure things out. It could take half the season, maybe longer. And I think I said this with Gardsy yesterday. It was, Chris Finch said recently they didn't really start to figure some of the Rudy and Cat stuff out year one until late in the season and the postseason. So things can sometimes take time, and fans don't want to hear that. Understandably, they want to see wins now. You gave up all this stuff for Rudy Gobert 2 years ago. You traded Karl Anthony Towns. You want to see wins. And, the reality of the NBA is that's a fault line right now between kind of what the team is working through and what the fans want to see. And that's where this tension comes in. That's where the anger and the frustration comes in on both parts. And the players are humans at the end of the day. They see social media reaction as much as anybody, and they'll see some of the negativity that's out there. So it's almost like a cycle in a way.
Well, Chris, we're never going to boo you because you're an elite Timberwolves mind and a stand-up guy. I appreciate you joining us today. Last question for you. Is there anything non-basketball related? You just seem like a man of multitudes. Is there anything non-basketball related that's on your heart, on your soul right now that you want to talk about?
I don't know. I've been so wrapped up in this, and Gardsy gave me the opportunity yesterday to talk about the book. So I'm doing a book on ants.
Let's go. When is that coming out?
I would love to. That's coming out in the spring.
Can't wait, man.
August and September and October writing it. I was like, oh, well, they're going to have a nice calm off season. I'll have September and October to work on it. And then boom, the trade happens, and you're writing about that while you're writing a book at the same time. So very excited for people to read that. Obviously a lifelong dream to write a book like this. And, hopefully people will enjoy reading Ant's story. And was down in Atlanta reporting it. Obviously talked to a lot of people around the team. And so, yeah, hopefully people will enjoy that when it comes out.
Oh, I'm sure it's going to be a banger. Cannot wait for it to come out. I'm gonna cop 10 copies and just give them away. Just make it rain. I'm just going to go to the club instead of stacks of dollar bills. I'm just going to throw the book out there so I can spread the word. Appreciate you joining us today, Chris. You're the man.
No problem. Thanks, Max. Appreciate you.
That is Chris Hine of the Star Tribune. He covers the Minnesota Timberwolves, and he covers them intelligently and with flair. Around the corner, second hour of Worst Case Scenario Radio. We got a little bit of a mixed bag segment. Kevin Fallness will be joining us to talk some Minnesota Wild. Then we got Progrum, Password, all of that and more right around the corner.
You wake up, put on your Ray-Ban Meta glasses. You're living all in. You realize you need coffee. So you say,
Hey, Meta, how do I make a latte?
Brew 2 shots of espresso.
after Meta AI gets you caffeinated, you're ready for some beats.
Hey, Meta, play hip-hop music.
You head to meet some friends, but can't remember the place.
Hey, Meta, call Eva.
Ray-Ban Meta glasses, the next generation of AI glasses. Just say, hey, Meta, to harness the power of Meta AI. Shop now at meta.com/smart glasses.
Light up your holidays with Vizio's 65-inch Quantum Smart TV, now just $449.99 at Target. Immerse yourself in a world of over 1 billion vibrant colors with quantum dot technology. Plus, wide viewing angle ensures everyone gets the perfect view during movie marathons, no matter where they sit. Stream your favorite festive songs from North Pole Radio using the built-in iHeartRadio app. But hurry, this deal won't last much longer. Give the gift of entertainment and get your Vizio 65-inch Quantum Smart TV for just $449.99 at Target today.
Can't be home for the game?
Caught for the touchdown!
NFL Plus has you covered with live, local, and primetime games on the go.
What a game he's had.
On your mobile device, you can access live, local Sunday afternoon games and all the primetime action from Thursday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, and Monday Night Football.
Tonight was definitely their night.
Sign up for NFL Plus today at plus.nfl.com. Subscription required for NFL Plus. Terms and conditions apply.